Hello everyone, AmyR here with Prairie Paper and Ink, and a non-traditional Valentine's card today. It could technically be an any occasion sort of a card, really. I started out doing most of my die cutting. I had been mulling over what I was going to do for this card, so I kind of started getting a plan in place. So I decided to do all the die cutting first, and I took some smooth white cardstock from MFT and I ran it through my Big Shot with the largest die from the Blueprints 2 Dynamics, as well as the circle die from the Starry Circle Dynamics. So it cut a window with a stitch line around it. And then I used that circle cardstock that was left over to die cut some clouds and the tops of these mountains here. I used the Snow-Capped Mountains Dynamics and die cut all of that. And then once I was done with that, I got some Summer Splash cardstock out and the Mini Hearts background stamp. And I'm inking up the stamp with the same ink, so the Summer Splash dye ink. And I always use my background stamps face up on my desk. It's just the easiest way to use them. And I'm going to lay that cardstock on there and stick some scrap paper over that. Press really good with my hands, so I've got this cute little heart background created here. So once I was done with that, I lined up my the front of what's going to be the front of the card over that, and I used just a baby wipe to clean off my background stamp. And I didn't want the border, like the edge of that Summer Splash cardstock, to be peeking out around the white cardstock, so I just took my paper trimmer and trimmed that down so that it would be smaller than the white cardstock. So that die cut it to around 4 inches, or it's either 4 inches or 4 1/8. I think it's 4 1/8 by 5 and like 3/8 or something like that. So once I've got that, now I'm going to start figuring out how I'm going to line up these little images to create my scene. So I've got the little tops of these little snow-capped mountains cut out. So I'm going to adhere those first to the base of the mountains, which I'd cut from some gravel gray cardstock. So I adhered those with some Tombow Mono Multi. And then I'm going to line them up on my, like behind this circle, basically, behind this window. So I'm going to line them up and kind of figure out how I want these to appear. And my original plan was to just adhere everything flat to that Summer Splash cardstock. But then as I was holding it like this, I'm like, ooh, it would look actually kind of cool if I adhered these directly behind the white cardstock. So what I ended up doing is just flipping it over, holding them in place, and then I'm just using some Scotch tape to adhere these down. It was simple. Then I didn't have to move anything. So just took a few pieces of tape here and taped down these little mountains so that they're adhered directly behind the circle. And then the clouds I did adhere to the Summer Splash cardstock, and these are the new little Cloud 9 Dynamics set from MFT. So those I just positioned roughly where I wanted them and then adhered them into place with my Tombow Mono Multi. So then I've got kind of my scene going, so now I've got to add my actual little character here. And I'm using the Birdie Brown by MFT, the Birdie Brown Polar Bear Pals stamp set, which is so adorable. This came out months ago, and it's been sitting here like just waiting for me to use it. So I inked up the little sitting bear, and I did this twice, and I'm stamping them onto neenah Solar White 80-pound cardstock, and I used My Favorite Things Hybrid Black Licorice ink. And then I just quickly color these in with Copic. It's really simple. That's the reason why I've said it in many videos. Like, I love polar bears, snowmen, penguins, those kind of images, because they're the simplest ones to color. These didn't take very long, even though I did super speed up the coloring process just because I'm not doing anything fancy. I added a bit of gray shading to these just to give it a little bit of depth and dimension, and I just used, I will have a picture on my blog, but I used C4, C2, C00, and then finally quickly blended out with my Zero colorless blender just to soften everything. And then I added a little bit of pink to his ears and to their cheeks with R20. And then for his fun little scarf, I colored these exact same, so I'm going to use one on the outside, one on the inside. And I wanted a kind of aqua blue color that's similar to that Summer Splash color. So I started with BG05, and then I went in with BG02, and then BG01, and then finally BG000, just to blend everything together. So really quick and simple Copic coloring, didn't take long at all. And then I pulled out my Big Shot again so that I can die cut these with the coordinating little die. So got that lined up, ran that through, and then the second time it was being difficult, so I attached the die the second time with just a little piece of Post-it tape, just so that didn't shift when I run it through my machine. So die cut that little guy, and then I grabbed another scrap of the gravel gray cardstock, and I'm going to die cut it with one of the MFT Stitched Fishtail Flags Dynamics dies. And I lined up my sentiment on there to see how big I wanted this piece to be, because I wanted the stitching to go all the way around. So figured out how big I wanted this to be, and then I just flip the die over and I can press the die cut into it so it lines up with the previous cut stitching. And then I tape that into place with my post-it tape and then run it through my machine again. Then using that end will now cut, and you're going to see here in a second how I now have stitching all the way around the entire die cut, which just kind of gives it a little extra something. So once I was done with that, I'm going to treat this with my anti-static powder tool, which just keeps the embossing powder from clinging to anything other than the stamped image. And I'm just stamping the sentiment, and the sentiment is from the same Polar Bear Pals stamp set. And it just works perfectly, of course, with this little image, because it's just sitting here thinking of you. So stamped it with Versamark ink, and then coated it with detail white embossing powder. And then I'm going to heat that up with my heat tool until the embossing powder is completely melted. And then once it's done, I'm able to, I just use my fingers to wipe off the excess anti-static powder that's kind of, it always leaves like a little bit of a residue. So I'd rub that off and then figured out how I wanted to lay everything out. So I decided to adhere the sentiment flat to this card front. And then the bear, I'm going to pop up with some just dimensional adhesive. I had a sheet of it sitting here still on my desk. So I just popped a couple of those onto the back of this little bear and pulled that off. And then attach that, and then I decided to attach the whole card front to that Summer Splash cardstock with a ton more dimensionals. Normally I'd use foam tape for this, but I was feeling ridiculously lazy, so I just used the dimensionals, which is kind of ridiculous because my foam tape is within arm's reach. But anyway, I have tons of it. I hoard adhesives. So anyway, I popped these up with that dimensional and just gave it that little extra something. And technically, if you wanted, this could easily be converted into a shaker card and it would look really cute. I just decided for once not to make a shaker card. So I set that aside, and my card base is some more heavyweight smooth white cardstock cut to 4 1/4 by 11 and then scored at 5 1/2. So it's a top folding A2 size card. And I want to finish off the inside here. So I've got my second little bear and then another sentiment from the Polar Bear Pals set, which this is where it kind of makes it more of a Valentine kind of theme anyway. It says, "I love you more than I can bear." So cute. So ink that up with the, my favorite thing is the hybrid black licorice ink, and stamp that onto the inside of the card. And I'm going to adhere the bear right over it so it looks like he's sitting right on that sentiment. So adhere that. And then I'm going to adhere my card front to the base, and I'm just using my Tombow Mono Multi because, again, convenience is king. It was sitting right there, and I also like the Tombow Mono Multi because it gives you just a couple seconds to shift things around, make sure they're lined up before it fully adheres, and then that's it. Like, you'll tear your cardstock, you try to pull it apart. So I did that, and then I couldn't resist. I had to add some sequins. I'm obsessed with these Studio Katya, the Crystal Clear Fusion sequins. I've shown them in a previous video, and I showed them when I got them, and I just love them. They're so pretty. So I sprinkled a whole bunch of these onto the card here, and then I'm just using my Crystal Katana to pick them up and then adhere them into place with my multi-medium matte adhesives, just little dabs of that. And as usual, I couldn't leave well enough alone. I wanted to add just some more fun to the card. So once I was done with the sequins, I pulled out my Spectrum Noir clear glitter overlay pen and coated his scarf with the pen, and then decided to coat the tops of the mountain, like the snow on the mountains, with that as well, just to give it that little extra shimmer and glitter without being completely overboard. So once that was coated, I'm going to turn the flashlight on my phone so that you guys can kind of pick up on the glitter. It's so pretty. Just love it. So yeah, and that finished off my card. So just really fun, fairly simple card with a lot of dimension and depth and whatnot, just thanks to some foam tape, or, well, dimensionals and all that stuff. So as always, I will have a link below the video to my blog post with links to all the supplies used, so check that out in the description box below. Thank you all so much for watching, subscribing, thumbs upping, and commenting on my videos. I really appreciate it, and I will see you all very soon in the next one. Bye!